Welcome back, friends, to the Raleigh Public Library's virtual story time. My name is Mr. Derek, and I'm going to be telling you the tale of the Two Bad Mice by Beatrix Potter. The illustrations you're about to see were also by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there was a very beautiful doll's house. It was red brick with white windows, and it had real curtains and a front door and a chimney. It belonged to two dolls called Lucinda and Jane. At least it belonged to Lucinda, but she never ordered meals. Jane was the cook, but she never did any cooking, because the dinner had been bought ready-made in boxes. There were 2 red lobsters and a ham, a fish, pudding, and some pears and oranges. They would not come off the plates, but they were very beautiful. One morning, Lucinda and Jane had gone out for a drive in the dolls' carriage. The dolls had a toy carriage. There was no one in the nursery, and it was very quiet. All of a sudden, there was some scuffling, a scratching noise in the corner, near the fireplace, where there was a hole. Tom Thumb put out his head for a moment, and then he popped it back in again. Tom Thumb was a mouse. A minute afterwards, Hunca Munca, his wife, put her head out, and she saw that there was no one in the nursery. The doll's house stood at the other side of the fireplace. Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went cautiously across the rug. They arrived at the dollhouse, pushed on the door, and found that it was not locked. What do you think the mice are going to find in the dollhouse? Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca went upstairs and peeked into the dining room. Then they squeaked with delight. Such a lovely dinner had been laid out on the table. There were knives and spoons and forks, and 2 dolly chairs so conveniently laid out. Tom Thumb set to work at once to carve the ham. It was a beautiful red ham. But when he tried to cut it with his knife, it crumpled up in his hand. He actually got hurt while he was trying to cut it because it was so hard. It must not be boiled enough. It is hard. You have a try, Hunca Munca. Hunca Munca stood up in her chair, and she started chopping at the ham with another knife. Well, it's as hard as rock, she said. Suddenly, the ham broke off the plate with a jerk and rolled under the table. Ah, let it alone, Tom Thumb said. Give me some fish, Hunca Munca. Hunca Munca tried every spoon to try to get the fish off the plate, but it was glued. Then Tom Thumb started to lose his temper. He put the ham in the middle of the floor and hit it with tongs and the shovel. The ham flew into pieces, and underneath the paint, there was nothing but plastic. Do you know what plastic is? A lot of your toys are made out of plastic. A lot of toys like toy food, or also a lot of different types of toys, will be actually made with plastic. And so the mice were discovering that it was actually not real food, but it was toy food made with plastic. Then there was no end to the rage and disappointment of Tom Thumb and Hunca Munca. They broke up the pudding and the lobsters and the pears and the oranges. Because the fish would not come off the plate, they put it into the red-hot fire, but it would not burn. The fire was only paper, crumpled up into the fireplace. Tom Thumb went up to the kitchen chimney and looked out at the top. There was no soup. Soup on a chimney is that black stuff that surrounds a chimney. I don't know if you have a chimney or you're familiar with what a chimney looks like. When they build a fire in it, the smoke from that fire will make soup go alongside the chimney walls. And so Tom Thumb crawled up the chimney and he saw that there was no soup. And that's how he knew that there had never been any fire in that chimney. While Tom Thumb was up the chimney, Hunca Munca had another disappointment. She went into the kitchen and found jars. Some of them had labels, rice and coffee. But when she turned them upside down, there was nothing inside but blue and red beads. Then those mice set to work to do all the mischief they could, especially Tom Thumb. He took Jane's clothes out of the chest of drawers in her bedroom and threw them out the top of the window. Hunca Munca had a more frugal mind. After pulling half the feathers out of Lucinda's bed, she remembered that she herself wanted a bed. So with Tom Thumb's assistance, she carried the bed downstairs and across the rug. It was difficult to squeeze that bed into the mouse hole, but they managed it somehow. Then Hunca went back and fetched a chair, a bookcase, a birdcage, and several small odds and ends. The bookcase and the birdcage refused to go in the mouse hole. Hunca left them behind. Hunca was just returning with another chair when suddenly there was a noise of talking outside the door. The mice rushed back to their hole, and the dolls came into the nursery. What a sight met the eyes of Jane and Lucinda. Lucinda sat up on the kitchen stove and stared. Jane leant against the kitchen dresser and smiled, but neither of them made any remark. The bookcase and the birdcage were rescued from under the coal box, which was where the mouse hole was, but Hunca had gotten the cradle and some of Lucinda's clothes. She also, while she was in the kitchen, managed to get a few useful pots and pans. When the little girl saw the mess that her dollhouse was, she said, "I will get a doll dressed like a policeman. That will keep those mice away." But the nurse had a different idea. "I'm going to set a mousetrap out." So that is the story of the two bad mice. But they were not so very naughty after all, because Tom Thumb paid for everything he broke. He found a crooked quarter underneath the rug, and on Christmas Eve, he and Hunca stuffed it into one of the stockings of Lucinda and Jane. And very early every morning, before anybody is awake, Hunca comes with her dustpan and her broom to sweep the dolly's house. The end. Well, thank you, friends, for enjoying these Beatrix Potter stories with me in the Rolla Public Library. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too. I want to encourage you to come to the Rolla Public Library, if you haven't already, and request a Storytime activity bag. You're going to be making your Peter Rabbit puppets. And I also want to thank you, and if you've already requested previous bags, because lately we have been really sending out these bags because a lot of parents have been asking for them. So I really appreciate everybody who's asked for the Storytime bags, and if you haven't asked for one yet, go ahead and call up the library and ask for a Storytime bag, and we can bring it right out to you. Thank you.